Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 25th and tonight's movie is Hell House LLC Origins, The Carmichael Manor. The original trilogy had completed and there was like a 4-year gap between the third movie and this one. I'm trying to remember if I ever even heard the name Carmichael during the original trilogy. If I did, it wasn't very notable. It was like a throwaway thing. But apparently this is like a murder house where the entire family either died or disappeared in one night, all the way back in 1989. There's apparently some sort of connection between what happened there and the cult from the Abaddon Hotel. Specifically, the two clowns there. Now that's a little confusing for me because I only ever remember there being one clown that gave anybody trouble, that like one with the black and white costume and like the empty eyes. Also, I had always assumed that was something that Hell House brought or rented. Was it just like there the whole time? Honestly, knowing these movies, maybe it was. But anyway, we got a new location, the Carmichael Manor. It just kind of looks like a big old mansion. It doesn't have like that perfect spooky atmosphere that the Abaddon Hotel had. It just kind of reminds me of the house from Dogger. Our leading characters are two internet detectives, like true crime detectives, two women, and I think one of their boyfriends. This is hardly a new setup for a found footage horror movie. They're normally either paranormal investigators or investigative reporters, but like bloggers are also very common. And with most of these movies, you got two questions you need to answer to at least some satisfying degree. Why are they recording everything? Why don't they just leave? I'm really interested to see how this fares because one of the best aspects of the original 3 movies was the location. So I want to see how Stephen Cognetti fares with the new setting. I'm gonna go watch it. Looks like we saved the best for last because this is the first movie that really seems to be comparable to the first one. I'm giving Hell House LLC Origins a 9 out of 10. The acting was good, the horror was good, the story was good, and the location was good too. There was also definitely more of a focus on like rounding out and developing the characters that we were following than there were in the past few movies, and that's probably because the cast wasn't nearly as big. I did that thing where I made assumptions based on stuff in the trailer. Apparently, the 3 main characters are 2 girlfriends and one of their brothers. Those 3 characters, Margot, Rebecca, and Chase, were all really well written and very well acted. This has an even better like core cast than the first movie did. One really good and really subtle example of the characterization in this movie was right at the beginning. You had the 2 leads, Margot and Rebecca, and they were getting lunch and they were eating it together. And Margot just like casually says to Rebecca, "Hey, do you want a tomato?" Because they were like eating salads. And she like reached over with a fork and picked out some. That's a very simple but effective way of showing the audience how well these 2 know each other. I also thought the horror was a step up from the last 2 movies. The pacing isn't as good as it was in the first movie, but it still had that same sort of like creeping sense of dread because you know that something goes terribly wrong. You know that everybody on screen ends up dying, but you don't know exactly how it's going to play out. And I thought that the climax was a good pay-up for all the build-up throughout the movie. Before we get to the spoilers, I'm just going to wrap up this part of the review by saying that this is the movie that most closely captures what made the first film so good. If you're going to check out any of the Hell House LLC sequels, look at this one. And now I want to go into some spoilers. I said in the intro that I couldn't remember a time in the first 3 movies I heard the name Carmichael, but one of the moments in this movie made me remember that, no, I did hear it. There was one member of Andrew Tully's cult that was not present for the mass suicide because he was in jail, and that person's last name was Carmichael. I remembered that because one of the things that they find in this movie is a set of old tapes that were from one of the Carmichael family members. I guess she had like a Super 8 or something because she recorded a lot of her stuff. Throughout a lot of her tapes, she seems very concerned about her brother Patrick Carmichael. He got in a car accident with his wife that killed her and broke his arm. But he gets some work and he's away from home a lot and he spends a long time away. They thought he died, but he says, "No, I wasn't dead, I was just in jail." And has also revealed that he worked at the Abaddon Hotel. This is also the first time where we get any sort of like characterization or humanization of any of the cult members. Up until now, they've just been like generic evil Satanist. But the reason why Patrick Carmichael wanted to follow this cult is because they told him he could bring his wife back to life. I also mentioned in the intro that they kept showing these 2 clowns in the trailer, and I didn't remember seeing them in the first 3 movies. That's because I don't think they were. But we do eventually see that one clown that was a big set piece in all three of the Hell House movies, revealed to be Patrick Carmichael. And we got one of those reveals that also shows that the rabbit hole went pretty deep. And now that I think about it, it was kind of like some of the reveals in the second movie. It felt like a bit much. But anyway, there were a couple really good moments of horror in this movie as well. Definitely the most creative scare in this whole movie was one where Rebecca is giving like a presentation. She's like working remotely during this because true crime internet sleuthing doesn't exactly pay the bills, and that comes up later as like a point of contention. But she's like doing a slideshow on her computer and doing a screen share with someone from her work. And then out of nowhere, it starts showing pictures of the Carmichael Manor. And whoever is taking these pictures is like walking up the stairs, and then it goes to right outside the room that she is currently in, and the door is open, and it's a picture of her sitting at the computer. And then in the next picture, there's a ghost standing right next to her, and then you get jump scared. I thought that was a really cool moment. There's also a moment at almost the very end of the movie. I said at the beginning that most found footage movies have to answer the questions of why are they recording everything and why don't they just leave? As for the first question, this movie doesn't really explain that super well. None of these movies do. But the second one, it's not that they don't leave, it's that they can't leave. They want to leave. Like, 2 out of the 3 people there want to leave the moment that things start going down. And by the time the third one agrees, they're essentially trapped there. Like, the cultists disabled their car, the cultists chase them through the woods when they try to walk back to the road, so they're just kind of stuck. And what made the most stubborn one, Margot, decide that they needed to leave is that her brother, Chase, just disappeared one night. And during the final part of the movie, they're stuck in their room and they start getting texts from his phone. It's definitely not him, or at least not the him that we know, because it's saying stuff like, "Ooh, I found some new friends. I want to introduce you to my new friends." Margot wants to take the chance and try to meet this head on, but Rebecca is saying, "No, stay in this room." And eventually they get a text that she doesn't read out loud for like 30 seconds, and then she just says, "It says they're in your room now." And the entire time they were looking at the door was either shut or Margot had it open and she was standing right there. And that's the moment that makes Rebecca drop everything and nope right out of there. But of course, despite their best efforts, all 3 of them die in the Carmichael Manor. I think that Hell House LLC Origins was a great return to form for this franchise. It was interesting, like, fully developing the story of the Avedon Hotel, but it was interesting at least partially stepping away from that for this movie. The 5th movie in the franchise, Hell House LLC Lineage, is not going to be a found footage movie, and it's going to apparently be the final installment of this franchise, which, I mean, the 3rd one, I thought that was supposed to be the last one, but if it was, we wouldn't have gotten this movie, which was a lot better. The biggest question I had when I started watching the sequels is, was the first movie, being as good as it was, kind of a fluke? And I think now, at the very least, this movie has shown no. Stephen Cognetti is more than capable of recapturing the first film's quality. And with that, I am done watching Hell House LLC movies, at least until next year when I watch the last one. And I'll see you tomorrow with a new movie.